Hello friends. In the very first class of Java programming language, what we'll do, we'll look at different features of Java so that we can understand what Java offers us and what exactly Java, how Java is different from other programming languages and what are the functionality that Java program offers us so that we can use this particular application programming language to develop a robust, secured, and high performance applications. To understand this, we'll start with few features of Java and let us note down few features. See, the features that we are going to discuss here might be 10, 12, 13, 14 features. But apart from these, there are a lot of features. But what features we will discuss here? Only those features which is very, very important for Java. The first and the simplest of the simple feature will start with Java is a simple programming language. Followed by that, we'll talk about the platform independence nature of Java. Platform independence. Number three, we'll look how Java is architectural neutral. Java is a portable programming language. Java is secure or we Java is secure programming language. Java is an object-oriented programming language. We will only look into the basics, and after the features started, after the discussion of every features, every concept, we might move into depth into the concept of each of these features right away. So the sixth feature is object-oriented programming language. Programming language like that. Number seven, we'll check Java also supports multi-thread. That's why it is called as multi-threaded programming language. Java also supports, Java is also called as a robust programming language. Java is called as distributed programming language. That is number 9, distributed programming language. Number 10, Java is dynamic programming language. Number 11, Java is interpreted programming language. And the last one, Java is, or the performance of Java is high, or we can say it is a high performance programming language. So these are few features we are going to discuss in depth. These are the features of Java, and these are not only the features of Java, but also we have a lot of features of Java that is beyond the discussion of this class. Features like strongly typed, features like uh, depth into object-oriented concept. So we will talk about all these features as and when we progress the classes. Trust me guys, once you complete the entire session of Core Java, you will find there are lots of features of Java, but to begin with, we'll start with only these 12. As the class progresses, in each class you might go on adding new features to Java programming language. So let's start with simple programming language. Why Java is called as a simple programming language? As the terminology, you can easily guess the term simple means it is definitely easy and simple to learn. So the first point I want to make here is it is easy to learn. It is easy to learn. So when I come across to the people who are learning Java for the first time without any prior knowledge of any programming language like C, C++, and any other programming language, this is the normal question I'm going to face in almost all the classes. When the student came to us and said, "Sir, we don't have any prior programming knowledge. Can I able to learn Java?" And my answer is very simple. To learn Java, no prerequisite is there. If you do not know any programming language, no problem at all. Still, then there are some much more doubts in the mind of the students. Some students said, "Sir, my brother is there in US. My brother is working on this, but in a different project." And he said, "How can you understand Java without understanding C and C++? But trust me, guys, this is not required at all. If you don't know C, C++, doesn't matter. If you know C, C++, that's also fine. So not mandate, not mandatorily required you should know C and C++. If you know, that's fine. If you don't know, no problem at all. Still, you can able to learn Java. In simple, you can also add that point. No prior knowledge of programming is required. No prior knowledge of programming is required. The next feature of simple is, this is for the people who know C, C++. This feature they might understand. That doesn't mean the people who are not into C, C++, they could not able to understand. See, every programming language has its own advantage and own disadvantage. There are some old programming languages like C, C++. They uses some concept like pointers, concept like inheritance, multiple inheritors, like that. Trust me, the people who are from C, C++ background, they can understand. There is a dangerous concept in C called as pointer. If you know pointer properly, you can use it and you can take the advantage. But if you do not know about everything about a pointer, the people who are coming from C, C++ background, they can understand the pain of using a pointer in that program. Similarly, the concept of inheritance in C, C++, it is again confusing. So what Java does, Java removed all such confusing oriented concept. So I can write Java removed all confusing concepts from old programming languages. See, I'm not targeting to C and C++, because before Java there are a lot of languages there in the market. But if you study the history of Java, Java is basically created for running in electronic appliances. So initially Java was created to run on electronic devices, and this particular Java is designed in an organization called as Sun Microsystem. And the person or the team who is responsible for this, the man behind Java is James Gosling. You should know this person. So James Gosling is a person who has designed this Java, and Sun Microsystem created this particular Java programming language. And this particular Java programming language is the output of a project called as Green Project, where James Gosling and Patrick Norton were the team lead. Anyway, we are not going back to the Java history and all. What we'll see, the features of Java. Java removed all the confusing concepts from old programming language. You can say like C, C++. All confusing concepts you can add here. Concepts like pointers, like multiple inheritance, etc. Right? So this is one of the reason why we can call Java is a simple programming language. This is simple to learn, not only simple to learn, easy to write the code also. Writing code in Java is not a very big deal. Only thing is you should understand the grammar, you should understand the basic rules of writing a program. Right, Java, as I told you, to learn Java, no prior programming knowledge is required. You can start your career from Java. You can go up to a long IT career, a tremendous IT career, doesn't matter. But Java is not any programming dependent, right? So this is why we can call Java as a simple language. Like next one, Java is platform independent. What that does mean? Let us understand what exactly platform means, then we'll talk for platform independence. So here, by the term platform means what exactly we are talking about. We are talking about different operating system, right? Suppose actually the platform independence property says four character things, WORA, which is stands for write once, run anywhere. What that does mean? Write once means where you want to write, where you want to run. doesn't matter. Suppose I'm running I'm running the system, I'm written a program, Java program here. Once I write a Java program, like the first two terms, write once. If I write the Java program, I can happily run this particular program in any machine. Machine running with Linux, running with Microsoft, machine running with Apple Mac operating system, any operating system. If I want to run that Java program, I can happily run that Java program anywhere. So rightly said, I just want to repeat. The thing is, it is basically called as write once, run anywhere. I can write the program anywhere, or I can write the program once, and once the program is written, I can run it anywhere in any platform. Right? I think this gives you a clear-cut clarity. So one thing I have to make it clear: platform independence. What it says, Java uses a principle called as write once and run anywhere. You can call this as WORA, no problem. But write once, and you don't have to write once, run anywhere. So you can call this properties as WORA, no problem at all. Right? What this particular thing means, you can write a Java program once, but you can happily run it on any operating system. We can write the program once, and you can run it on any platform like Linux, like Windows, like Windows machine, like Linux, like Apple Macintosh, wherever you want, you can happily run. This is what called as platform independent. Whenever you're writing a program, you should not have to think that this particular program is only for this machine. That particular program, I do have a machine. What I have done, I have written a code here. So what I can do, I can easily run this code, this particular Java program, in any of the system, maybe the system running with Windows operating system running with Linux operating system, or the system operating with a Mac operating system. Doesn't matter. Still, you can able to run that particular code in any machine, right? Now, come to the third one, architectural neutral. What that does mean? Let us understand what architectural neutral is. Whenever I'm talking about architecture, means it is particular configuration of a particular system. What exactly? Suppose, listen very carefully, because the term platform independent and architectural neutral seems like both are same, but both are not same. You need to be give much attention to this particular concept. To understand what exactly architecture neutral is, let us understand what exactly architecture is. Suppose I got a machine. Where my processor is i3 core processor. I have installed 4 GB of RAM, and I am running a Windows operating system. Now, what I have done, I have created a program. I have installed Java here. I have created some programs here. This is what I have in my system. Now, at some point of time, I thought my system goes slow. So what I am doing is, I am going for some upgradation to the machine. Upgradation as in, I want to upgrade my Windows to Windows 8 to Windows 10, let's say. I want to increase the size of the RAM to maybe 8 GB. I want a higher processor from i3 to maybe i5. Any kind of upgradation I want to go. Now, Java says, I don't care whatever the upgradation or degradation you want in your system. I simply don't care, because once Java is installed, one Java program is there, that particular program does not directly interact with the machine. It never directly interact with this, never. That's why changing on any resources of your computer does not change, does not affect the Java program. Means, if you want to, suppose I have created a Java program on let's say 1st January 2021, and on the 4th of January, what I have done, I have changed all some resources of my computer. Now, on 5th of January, I want to run the Java program which I have created on the 1st January. Now, the thing is, I can happily run that code without any change. So the conclusion is, during upgradation, if I do during the upgradation of my system, does Java program requires any changes to run it further? The answer to this question is no. It doesn't require any changes because Java supports architectural neutral. Let me tell you the internal mechanism why Java doesn't fall into this category. Remember one point, Java never talks directly to the machine. Never talk directly to the machine. It interacts with the machine through JVM or through some other parameters. We'll name these parameters after a few classes. But one thing you have to make sure, since Java does not directly communicate with the machine, that's why changing any part of the machine does not affect the internal mechanism, internal code of Java programming. So for Java, the previous architecture, the new architecture, the architecture coming in future doesn't have anything. It doesn't affect the internal structure of Java. Java code will remain same. The program you have written in the 1st January 2021 in a machine, i3 machine, if the same machine is upgraded to i7 5-10 days after 5-10 days, or maybe after 10 months, or maybe 1 year or 2 year, the same Java program can happily be executed on that system itself without changing anything in the code. I think this gives you clear-cut clarity what exactly architecture neutral is, right? So what we can do, we can write the points like any change in the architecture of the computer or the machine doesn't require any changes in the Java program. You can add also one point here. We can also add one point here. That point is Java never communicates with the machine directly. So doesn't matter whether you are upgrading your system, whether you are downgrading your system, doesn't matter, right? And if since Java never communicates to the system directly, so any upgradation in the resources does not affect Java programs. So this is why Java is called as architectural neutral. I think this part is pretty clear, right? So see, even if both the things looks like same, but they are not same, you can have a look on it. The first one says platform independent. What that does mean, if once a Java program is written, you can run that Java program in any machine. Machine with Windows operating system, machine with Linux operating system, machine with Mac operating system. But if we are talking about the second one, in a single machine, I have Java installed. And previously, I have some architecture, some resources. Now, what I have planned to change the resources, upgrade to resources to accommodate new hardwares, like RAM size I have enhanced, like motherboard, let's say processor I have changed, like instead of Windows 8 I'm running on, I'll be upgraded to Windows 10. All these changes in resources, all these upgradation in resources does not affect Java program. It will again behave in the same way that it behaves properly. I think from this two discussion, you might have got a clear-cut clarity what exactly platform independent is and what exactly architectural neutral is. Now, the third one, we'll go to the third one. Again, the third one is very confusing. Second, third, and fourth, these three are very similar to each other, even if it looks like very similar, but there are some differences. Let's talk about portable. Nowadays, there is a concept called as mobile portability. We all of us will heard about mobile number portability. What that does mean? Suppose I have a connection. I have a mobile phone with a Vodafone network. Now, in my area, Vodafone was previously very good, excellent. So I have chosen Vodafone as my number, and I have taken a number 98 something like that. But now Vodafone network goes down. Before 4 5 years back, only mobile network portability is there in India. Before that, there was no mobile portability in India, right? So now what I have planned to switch from Vodafone to any network which is very strong in my area. Suppose the network is Airtel. Now, whenever I'm changing Vodafone to Airtel, my question is, does my mobile number get changed? No, my mobile number does not get changed. But what is changed? The service provider has been changed. Service provider, I have switched the service provider from Vodafone to Airtel. This is what called as mobile number portability. I repeat, this is what called as mobile number portability. In the same way, in the same context, suppose I have a machine. Now the program is written on that machine. I have compiled that program, right? I have generated bytecode for that program, right? Now I want to take this code from Windows. Want to migrate from Windows to Linux. I want to migrate from Windows to Mac machine. Now the same code will be happily executed in, I can happily take this code from here and I can execute in Linux. I can take those code from here, I can execute in Mac. So here what happens? The code remains same. The language remains same. What has been changed? What has been migrated? Now it has been migrated from machine 1 to machine 2 to machine 3. Machine 1 and machine 2 maybe both are using different service provider. One is using Windows, one is using Linux. See, in this might be for all of you, you might see that platform independence and portability both are same. No, to achieve platform independent, I have to use the concept called as platform independence, right? Java, if so here what is happened, the program is already written for this particular machine. Now what I want to migrate from Windows to Linux. I want to migrate from Windows to Mac. I want to migrate. Now the migration process is basically called as portable. So now that particular Java programming language, that particular program is okay with any migration. Like the number will remain same, it will be changed from one service provider to other. The same thing, it is like that. The code is there for one machine, it can be happily migrated to other machine. So this is what called as mobile, this is what called as portability. I think you got the clarity what exactly portability is. And the best example of portable is your mobile number portability in India, right? So here we can take a note of that. What exactly the note is? You can write, we can carry the byte code to any platform without making any changes, without making any changes to the program, right? Like we can change to any operator that is best suited in my area with or without changing my mobile number. Similarly, here what we said, we can carry the bytecode to any platform without making any changes. We can carry it to any platform. So like we are working with Vodafone, we want to migrate to Airtel. What is not changed? My number. Similarly, I am working on some machine. I want to migrate from machine 1 to machine 2. So what I don't have to change, I don't have to change the Java code. Java code will remain same. Machine 1 is migrated to machine 2. This particular feature is called as portability. This is what called as portable in nature. This is why Java is called as portable language. Now, the next part. Next part is very, very vital. Secure. What exactly secure is? See, every programming language to be called as secured programming language, we have lot of requirements. Before understanding security, before understanding the secure nature of any programming language, let us discuss some discuss some day-to-day activities that we are performing in a machine. Suppose tomorrow I got a requirement for recording my screen or recording my lectures. So for that, what I have done, I have logged into the internet, go for searching. Can you please provide me a lot of alternatives to do this? Now, your internet service provider or maybe Google, maybe any search engine provides you a lot of links. From that link, you are downloading one file. Can you recall whenever you are downloading any file, any executable file having .exe or .exe or .com extension. Suppose I'm searching something. Let's say I'm searching for a particular program called as abc.com or abc.exe. Now, in the Google search engine, what I have done, I have written, can you please search me abc.exe? Now, Google gives you 3-4 links. From this link, you have downloaded. You have agreed to download this file. Now, whenever you are agreed to download this file, immediately there will be an alert message. Boss, the file you are going to download may contain harmful codes that will affect your system. Are you want to continue? If you press yes, you are downloading the same file at your own risk, right? But whenever you are downloading any Java code or any Java bytecode, and if you try to download this bytecode to your machine, in no way you are going to get an alert. This is completely alert free because bytecode does not contain any kind of virus, right? .exe file, they might contain, or some people are there who can inject their code in the exe file. So that file might be harmful for your computer. But in bytecode, it is not possible at all. I'll tell you the internal mechanism why it is not possible at all and who is responsible for that and who is responsible for making our Java program very, very secure, right? For security features, we will discuss 3-4 points here, but once we will be into Java programming world, we'll learn it to more extent. To begin with, let's understand the internal architecture. Let's understand the internal mechanism why I can call Java as a secure programming language. Okay. Now we know whenever we are writing a program, the program has an extension name .java. Don't worry how to write a program. We'll write the program and we'll learn everything. Once Java program is written, then what I need to do, I need to compile that Java program so that it will give me .class file. Now the .class file is also called as bytecode. Listen, just don't try to mug it up. Don't try to remember this one, just for your understanding sake. Now this is a program written by the program called as source code. It is compiled to class, which is called as a bytecode. Now this bytecode is converted into machine code with the help of JVM, Java Virtual Machine, right? Now, if anything except bytecode is there, Java Virtual Machine does not allow it to execute because Java Virtual Machine can only know bytecode, right? It doesn't know anything else. Now you can ask me, sir, JVM can only understand bytecode. Okay, accept it. Now, is there any, don't you think there is a chance that a hacker is there who can directly inject his code with a bytecode symbol? Whether that is possible or not? Yes, rightly said. This is possible. A hacker can have directly inject his own code to the bytecode and that code will be directly recognized by JVM, right? Now, if this happens, where is the security? This is the biggest question. It's $1 million question, right? Let me answer this question. So now what we have said, first of all, what we have said, Java program is written. It is compiled to dot class file, which I am calling this as bytecode. And it is with the help of JVM, we are converting into machine code so that it will be get executed. Now, the question is, some of the hackers are there who does what? Who injected their code. Hacker injected their bytecode to this particular code. Now, thing is, how JVM can manage this one? See, in JVM, whenever the code is handed over to JVM, because JVM is the person who is responsible to convert this one into machine code as well as to execute that particular program, right? Whenever the code is there at JVM checks for two things. First of all, whether this particular bytecode is properly formatted or not. The first point it is going to check, it is properly formatted or not. Second point, whether this bytecode is generated from a valid Java compiler or not. If these two things are not there, if JVM found one of them is missing, immediately it will raise an error called as verify error. If it raise an error, definitely you can understand this particular code cannot able to execute it. I repeat, JVM does what? Checks two, three things. First thing, it will check whether it is properly formatted or not. There is an internal architecture of formatting, and we'll discuss about this part. Maybe if time permits, we'll discuss about this part, and we'll also discuss about JVM architecture, which is again a 2 hours class, right? So I am trying to accommodate within the time period. We'll discuss this one in some other videos. Now, what it checks whether it is properly formatted or not. Second, what it checks whether the bytecode that is submitted to JVM came from a valid Java compiler or not. If it is not came from a valid Java compiler, immediately it will going to produce an error. That means it says, boss, the code that you have submitted to me is not of proper format, or it is not came from a valid Java compiler. So I cannot execute your code. Can you please cross check both these methods? Now what you need to do, you need to cross check and you need to write the codes. In that way, JVM prevents to execute the code which is not properly formatted as well as which is not came from a valid Java compiler. Understood? And this is one of the reason why we can say Java is a secured programming language. Got it? So in what we should write as a point here, we can write like Java's code first compiled to bytecode and converted to machine code by JVM Now, JVM or Java Virtual Machine checks whether it means the bytecode, it came from a valid compiler, valid Java compiler, and it is properly formatted or not. Now the question is, if not, then verify error will be raised and the program will never get executed. And if there will be no error, happily it will execute your code. So the chances are very, very less, even almost chances are not there, that a hacker can inject his or her own code into a JVM and he tries JVM and try to execute some malicious code. It is not possible because of internal architecture of JVM, Java Virtual Machine. Literally, who is responsible for this? There is a component inside JVM. There is a component called as there is an internal component inside JVM called as bytecode verifier. And I have clearly explained to all you what exactly bytecode verifier is. Bytecode verifier's responsibility is to check two things. One, whether the bytecode submitted to it is perfectly formatted or not. Second, it came from a valid Java compiler or not. Not only this particular one, why Java is called secure. This is one of the reasons why Java is called a secure programming language. But apart from that, Java has a lot of mechanism to provide web security. Java has a component. We'll talk about this all this one later. Java has a component called as JAAS. We can call that one as Java Authentication and Authorization Service for providing web security. And Java also have lots of network security algorithm. Lot of algorithms are there which has been implemented. So using all those, we can not only secure the Java code, we can also provide security on web application. We have also provide security to the network. So I think for this video, we'll keep up to this point. Like we have covered 5 points: simple, platform independent, architectural neutral, portable, and secure. In the next video, we will see some other features. So thank you guys for joining. Please stay tuned to the next video so that we can learn more and more features. Thank you all, and thank you so much for all your responses. Thank you all.